everybody, it's T. Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Circle of Brilliance. Today we're going to begin a new topic. This topic is actually an extremely old topic, and that topic is about the wheel of life. So where this whole concept came from, how we might be utilizing it, and really where it fits into our outreach program that we've been working on for many months. But everything is now finally ready for us to launch. Well, in order for us to launch this community membership thing and get the coaching things. Remember, I don't know how long ago, the focus of the circle was how you go about change work system coaching. So what would be the methodology that we'd be encouraging you to use with clients who came to you through whatever the community happens to be? So obviously I'm envisioning having far greater demand for individual coaching than any one person could handle. So that's definitely where I'm hoping this all ends up. So the question then becomes, well, what's the intake? What's the front end? How do we get people to be involved? And we've been talking and playing with the Circle of Brilliance. You guys know yesterday was the 33rd lesson in this Oracle of the Self, program that we've been doing. It morphed into something it was never intended to be, but everyone's enjoying it, so we're going to continue it and maybe change the name of it down the road somewhere. But nevertheless, we have to get back to what is this intake system for getting people to know what tension management is all about, getting people to have a little bit of an experience with the whole thing, and kind of go from there. And so I thought, well, what we really want to do is leverage YouTube as effectively as we can. So how do we create something on YouTube that will engage viewers so they'll watch the little video and then give them something to do that will then pull them into something experiential? And so the thought is that if once a week I can give people a quick little change grid of the week. So here's the subject for the week, and here's the change grid for it. Fill it out. You get your results instantly, and then you can listen to the debrief calls or participate in the debrief workshop and all that sort of a thing. And then from there, we'll invite people to join our community. And from there, hopefully good things happen for everyone involved. So what we need to do at this point is say, well, what is the wheel of life that we want to base these change grids on? So is it the one that we used back in 2007, which is what you see on your screen right now? In fact, let me just go ahead, chat this over to everyone. You're welcome to have it and use it, whatever you want. This was developed in cooperation with Mark Chekai, who's one of our earliest certified professionals. And he had a program at the time he did called Life Setting. And you can imagine how elaborate life setting was if this is on page 56 of the workbook. So life setting was really just about, how do I put it? Like goal setting, but really it's not just about having a little goal. It was really looking at more of a comprehensive, holistic life plan sort of a thing. And so these were the things that we came up with. Now, lo and behold, we found out very quickly that many such wheels have already existed. I would not be at all surprised to find out if a great many of you have actually integrated a wheel of life sort of thing into your own work, or certainly experienced a wheel of life self-assessment at some point in time. And you kind of know different wheels have different numbers of spokes. So we've seen wheels that have got a half a dozen spokes and ones that have got, I don't know, 8, 10, whatever. We decided 12 looked pretty good. And so I'm going to slide this out of the way for just a second, and I'm about to chat over to you an extremely large document, but I think it's something you're going to hopefully appreciate having. So what I'm doing now is chatting over to you this Wheel of Life to Journey document. This was started many moons ago, but it is something that I thought I'll pull out and I'm going to start expanding upon it just to kind of revisit the subject, do a little search through the archives to find out what we've done before and, pick up where we left off. So I'm going to back scroll a little bit. If you guys open that document, oh, yeah. How when you're digging for one thing, you stumble across other things. Well, one of the things I stumbled across was this little quote that I found. It's on a Word document. There's no other copy on the whole Word document. All it says is, you don't fit on the change grid. The change grid fits on you. And I thought, I don't know what I meant when I typed that the first time, but I could really take a look at that. So I think the whole point is that everyone has a complete change grid available to them, even though you land somewhere on that grand change grid of life. Your little region of that grand change grid is still a full change grid as far as you're experiencing it. Okay, anyway, and then a little process, blah, 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 blah. But then I found that we had already started compiling a whole different list of life factors that someone could be looking at. So, material possessions, space for privacy, freedom, legacy. And then we found some other model who said, no, here's the eight, it's body, mind, and emotions, relationships, family, on and on. And then this one was different as well about, all right, here's, I don't know what this is, a good 10, 12 different activities or areas people can be looking at. And so then here's another one with eight. And then, at that time when we did this last, um, there was a movie series out called Divergent, based on a series of novels called Divergent. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but it basically is a dystopian novel designed for young adults. A series that says that there's a time where a culture decides that at a certain age, everyone must enter a particular faction, and the factions were candor, abnegation, amity, dauntless, erudite, divergent, and factionless. So, are you going to be a member of the honest, the selfless, the peaceful, the brave, the intellectual? What you don't want to be is divergent, because they considered that to be some sort of a, I want to say, recessive sort of a trait that needed to be eradicated from their society. So if you actually were both honest and brave, you were in trouble. You were gone. And ultimately, you would be expelled from the community. And there you would find comfort at a group of people who were factionless. They took the test and it couldn't assign them to anything. And so that's what this all ends up being. And so I thought, you know what? It's a lot has happened since 2007. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to help us in designing Wheels of Life. So before anyone else or before we jump into this, anyone have any thoughts, comments about Wheel of Life experiences that you've had, or where you've integrated it? Any thoughts, anybody?
I have an interesting question about it. I've worked with it. I've always heard of them, but never experienced it until I took Dr. Ekbal, University of North Carolina's course,
Okay.
which is based on his book. If your life were a business, would you invest in it?
Oh, interesting. All
And
right.
so there's 13 steps in this. If your life were a business, would you invest in it? And then what he had us do was we use a wheel of life to decide what life businesses we were going to target. So I had one like for my health, one for relationships, and
Yep.
on
So
and
you would
on.
create multiple wheels.
Right. And each one of those was a life business that you would do a personal audit, you would have a board of directors, you have, I mean, a whole
Yep.
gamut.
Yep.
And
Well,
so it's
and
very, very much in depth. But what was interesting to me, and based on what you were just hearing, I never seen like an interactive one.
oh,
That meets
well,
you where you are, like what we're talking about intention management.
yeah. So let me explain how we actually use this little exercise in the class. Oh, don't go to sleep. Stay right there. And then you can kind of see, because we do use multiple wheels. My little joke was always that a wheel is a great thing, but it really doesn't do anything until you attach it to something else. So you usually need more than one wheel, or you need a wheel with a barrow behind it. A wheel all by itself is a curiosity, but we have to turn this into something that's more representative of life, in which case some of us are 18 wheelers, right? We've got so many different areas of life that we look at, and each area could be broken down into a whole lot of sub areas. We're not one wheel. But for me, that's in depth work. When you really have a client,
Hmm.
you really want to help them explore all the different areas of life in grand detail. Um, then definitely you need more than one wheel. And the wheels you really need, to me, are not pre-mapped. They're wheels that are created uniquely for each individual.
Right,
Who am I to
right.
say that these are your 12 areas? Now, for our purposes, though, when you're doing a general training program, or we're going to be producing the series of YouTube videos with change grade experiences, well, you got to standardize things. And so think of this for more as general screening sorts of purposes. And I think you'll be very impressed with how we've kind of been pursuing this. And by we, I mean me and Chat GPT. So, who I really consider to be a real person. It's very strange. But nevertheless, what we would do is we would say, all right, everyone, you're in class now. We want you to take an inventory of your life as it is right now and tell us the degree to which you feel that this life area is being satisfied in your life. To what degree are you satisfied? And
Mm,
so you would just say, well, if you're not very satisfied at all, you can give it a 0. If you're kind of satisfied, fine, pick an in between number. And if you're totally satisfied, give yourself a 10 for each one of these. And so people would look at friends and social. And I don't remember if we use the scale below or the scale above, it really doesn't matter. But they would kind of circle it. All right, get the idea. So you'd say career advancement. Well, maybe I'm a 7. Family, I'm a 9. Material possessions, I'm a whatever, and you just work your way around primary relationships, charitable activity, travel and entertainment. This was kind of like the set of 12 that we thought were as globally applicable as they could possibly be. Um, so that's what we were using. Now, what you would do is after you came up with your 12 circles, we would say, now take a ruler and connect each one of them. Just connect them all around the wheel. And you're going to end up with your wheel taking a shape. And very rarely is someone's wheel going to be round. You're going to
mm,
find that there are areas that are very satisfied and others that have barely been touched. And so, our big question at the end of this exercise is, will your wheel roll? Because if your wheel won't roll, you're going to get stuck somewhere. And where you tend to get stuck is where the wheel is flat. So
mm,
if you've got a place, or exactly, Shag. So the tire of life may have a flat, exactly right. And so usually it is those, if you're a wheel and you've got a flat, you're going to stop. That's where you're going to puddle. It's going to be at the bottom. And until you punch up, blow up that particular area of your life, you're going to kind of it's going to be what's holding you back. If you
mm.
literally, if you want to stick with this wheel kind of metaphor. And so, bottom line, it's an interesting little self-assessment. It can lead to a lot of great developmental work, lots of coaching, all that sort of stuff. Of course, it can lead to a change grid being created, but that's what it was for. A simple kind of a thing that people would just go and, hopefully these areas were that. Now, at this point in time, we didn't concern ourselves with the arrangement of these different areas. They were all there. I like tire maintenance. That's very good. Tire
Mhm.
pressure, tension, very good. But we just went like, hey, it's a cool little diagram. We made no attempt whatsoever to overlay this on the change grid itself. However, there was a series of conversations that we had as the circle many moons ago that we actually did try to say in different areas of the change grid, we're going to find different kinds of goals that someone might pursue. And without going into the danger zone, just staying between the green circle and the red circle. Well, what do we always say? What happens between the green circle and the red circle?
Life is lived.
That's where life is lived. Well, this is a representation of the life that we're living. And so we would say, well, that outgrid area between the green and the red circle might very well be more about career advancement, or maybe it's about, I don't know, maybe financial well-being is a little bit further down grid because you want more stability and more analytical things have to be applied there. And when it comes to travel and entertainment, maybe that belongs more up grid, and charitable activities belong more in grid, and your spiritual life needs to be either closer to mid-grid, but nevertheless, if you're on a quest for that, then you get the idea. We have this theory, and we did play it all out, and I will look for it so we can revisit it perhaps on the next call. But we did try to map them to the change grid so we could rotate this in a particular way. Is that necessary? No, but it shouldn't surprise any of us that anything that's supposed to be taking a comprehensive look at life should overlay on another tool that's looking at a comprehensive, view of life. And so,
Mm-hmm.
so there's that. But that was not where our mind was in 2007. This is something again we did in cooperation with Mark Checkeye.
But you know what I like about this, and going along with that tire metaphor that Chris and Shags is talking about, is people need a dashboard today, right?
Mhm.
Because what you find is even though they may have a flat, they'll continue to go, and it's just a bumpy ride, so to speak, but they're still moving. And
Yeah,
people can get stuck in that. But if they
yeah.
had a dashboard, just like your dashboard where the indicators come on,
Mhm.
perhaps you'll learn to say, okay, I probably should pay attention to this. Is this keep going off?
Yeah,
Maybe I should look at this and see what's
yeah,
going
yeah,
on underneath it where you can't see,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
you can't deal with those things. Like I think I mentioned before, like in private pilot lessons, all planes have what's called an attitude indicator.
Hmm.
And the attitude indicator lets the pilot know it's the plane's orientation to the Earth's horizon, because you can't see underneath the plane.
Yeah,
So you
right.
have to be able to land, to both descend and ascend appropriately, or else you can crash.
Yeah,
And so it lets you know how balanced you are with that. And that's what
right,
that
right. Are you
indicator
traveling?
serves.
Right, exactly right, exactly right. Um, yeah, and so again, we've often said that the change grid is a tool that we believe can be effectively used following the use of any psychometric tool or any kind of a self-development exercise. Because at the end of any of those psychometric tools or developmental exercises, a two-word question arises. What's the two-word question? You guys remember this? Now
Say
what?
that? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like what's next. Thanks, Shepard. It's the same
And
thing.
now that you know this about yourself, what do you intend to do about it?
Right. Where's the work need to be done? Where are the opportunities for
And of
greater?
course, we know then you say, well, here's your current situation, and there's your
That's
desired
right.
situation.
And
And
there's
what's the likelihood of what's in between obstacles? And what's your
that's
likelihood of
right.
moving through these obstacles
Exactly.
without guidance, without I can gut it.
Probably the right kind of type and level
Yes.
of support. Yeah, this is
Yes.
exactly right. And so to me, this just was a natural now thing to lead into a change grid or a whole series of change grids, depending on how deep you and the client's relationship is. So anyway, bottom line, you get the idea. So now I'm going like, all right, if we really want to integrate this, I think we want to revisit what are these 12 areas. And then I'd like to know, and where do they overlay on the change grid, just so we can make sure we're not missing a particular area that would give us a more holistic sort of thing, exactly, without support or guidance. Shags, excellent. So,
You know what else come to mind to me, T, is the brain is a great uh, uh, machine for predicting things, but it struggles when it comes to the prescriptive and descriptive part, because we have to get underneath and understand context.
yes,
And
yeah,
that's what these dashboards, like what this Wheel of Life could help people with. It's like saying, okay, this is what I'm predicting, but is what I'm predicting accurate? Is it relevant for this moment? What can,
yes,
as Shags was just describing, what kind of value can I get from it? Like, what now? What next?
exactly, exactly. And that's what we want to look at. Obviously, our goal is to get people to join the ChangeWorks community because it's free. Once they're a member of the ChangeWorks community, our goal is to stimulate them intellectually, connect with them emotionally, find some way to say, by learning this, by learning more about this. In fact, a lot of you guys are on the Monday calls. And so, do you think that I am misreading things when I say that there are people on the call who are not among our ChangeWorks fold? I won't name them specifically since this is being recorded, but whatever we're doing has kept them engaged for 33 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
They have never missed a single class.
Right.
So,
Well,
that tells me that there's something really valuable going on there. I just need it to be valuable to a broader audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do we go about doing that? We got to find some sort of an interesting intake system. The day and age we're in right now, it's got to be leveraging, whether it's long videos, short videos. You guys know that the world is pretty much driven now by social media, and specifically social media with a strong visual component to it. So I mean, podcasts are great. And Linda loves listening to her podcast, but we all know that most of the time people are getting pulled into watching YouTube videos or some other platform, TikTok, whatever it is. That's where we're at. So
Mm-hmm.
we got to meet the public where they are. And so I wanted to find a creative way to leverage YouTube to be able to do that. Okay.
Interesting.
So now I will tell you that one of the other things that I've stumbled across, because one of you'll see it later on, but journaling is going to come up for people who are in the center of the change grid as one of their mission critical activities. Well, I know someone who has actually decided to integrate journaling and Chat GPT. So what
Mm-hmm.
you do is you do your little journaling, and you can do it in whatever document you do it, but their thought is that you journal inside of Chat GPT because it does store all of your conversations and that, or you do your typing and then you can download your pages that you've just done. But you go ahead and you do your journaling for the day, and then you ask Chat GPT what questions you should be asking yourself about what you've just journaled, or
Mm-hmm.
what lessons you've taken from it. And you basically engage Chat GPT as this other voice in your head, a counsel, the oracle of the self, sort of a thing. So I think it's really interesting, but you got to get comfortable with Chat GPT.
I've used that T
Yeah.
in clients that say, how do I actually with coaches that ask, how can I get my clients to have a conversation with the innocent and the magician, or
Yes.
the innocent and the warrior
Yes.
regarding this particular aspect of the relationship with money?
Yeah.
And it has come up with some absolutely on spot
Right.
fourth
Isn't
conversation. I am
it
so
amazing?
impressed. I've and I say you could bill this out for $100. It took you 10 seconds to generate.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you query Chat GPT to see if it already knew about Deborah's work?
No, but I did query it about archetypes and money and what
Yep.
it thought to see what it was saying without feeding it Deborah's stuff
Right, 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 right. Yep, 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 yep,
because
yep.
it's copyrighted and she doesn't have the publication rights for online.
Right, right, right. It is important for you guys to know that while this is not true for all of the different um, AI platforms that are out there, whatever Chat GPT is generating for you is isolated to you. So I know people are concerned about everything you typing becomes part of, they call it the corpus
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that it has. But ChatGPT is really trying to make sure that the corpus does not get contaminated with all sorts of stuff that people might be writing about or talking about,
That's not true.
but isn't true, isn't valid, or whatever. And so there are many filters that are going on there. But Chris, to your point, if you're concerned about privacy, do not name specific names. That's
Mm-hmm.
the only thing that I would do. Don't give it any kind of actually personal identifiable information. If you're trying to do something that's really developmental, writing a book or things like that, ChatGPT is there to help you do that. It is not there to undermine your efforts by letting everyone else have act to it as well. And so it does very much have great knowledge that it can get, but it's only pulling its knowledge that it's sharing with you from vetted sources. That's their goal, is that the corpus has to be clean. If the corpus is dirty, the output is going to be dirty.
Mm-hmm.
So we gotta. So they're not ready to just take everything at face value.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anywho, that's the story right now. And by the way, so you also know ChatGPT has a drop dead date of the autumn of 2022. Was that it? Or 2021? I'd have to look it up. It'll tell you.
21, I think it is.
Yeah, if you ask
21.
somebody date specific, it'll say, I have nothing that I can share with you that is newer than the
September
fall
21st.
2021. What's that?
September 2021.
September
Yeah.
2021. And so anything you're putting in today, it doesn't know is really exists. So
No, you have to use other tools for that, like how Edge uses ChatGPT. You can go to a website and just being open the chat, it'll say you can ask it questions because that is you're speaking to ChatGPT there. You do the same thing, like open a PDF file and it'll summarize it. It'll do everything. So
yeah,
you just have to use it in other ways,
yep,
but
you do.
it's not going to go beyond
You can
2021.
supply it with anything that you want it to evaluate. That's why people can use it
Right.
for writing books, or as you'll see how I've used it for today's call. But yeah, if you're going to ask it anything factual, historical, just know it doesn't know anything after September 2021. Okay, anyway, moving on. So you get the idea about the Wheel of Life. To me, it just gives us a nice structure so that I can put together this series of weekly change grids that I'm trying to use to really create some connection with the people who hopefully will not only visit our channel but share it with other people and attract them there. If there is something that is actually interactive and it's happening frequently, then that's what's really going to matter. So what I'm willing to do right now is to commit to 12 different change grid profiles, 12 weeks. Each one of those profiles is based on one of these spokes, not necessarily these words. We're getting to that next. So that's what we're doing here. Okay.
So is your vision to have them take a change grid first and then work the wheel or do it
No, they don't
simultaneously?
know the wheel exists. They don't know. I mean, I'm going to say
Uh,
to them that what we really are doing right now is using a wheel of life. So there'll be some explanation as far as the setup of all that is concerned. And I might even put a wheel into the resource materials that people who have signed up for the free community membership can have access to. Or you guys could say, no, move this into the domain of the professional so that this is something that only a professional or someone with a higher level of designation in the community could actually be pulling out and using with someone. So, is it a tool for self-assessment, self whatever? Is it a tool for others? What I'm feeling right now is that a generic one like this is fine for the general public, for self-assessments, but to emphasize heavily that the wheel of life that really matters most to you is the wheel that is created uniquely for you. And for that wheel to be generated, reach out to one of our change work system coaches, and they'll be more than happy to help you. And whether you start with a wheel of life, or you start with a path of self-discovery, or you start with some other instrument that you already hold near and dear, well, then go ahead. But ultimately, the goal is to help you to engage, clients for yourself and that. Yep. Okay, so what I did was I chatted over to everyone. Maybe I'll do it again in case we had any latecomers. Those of you that are listening to this call, I'm still figuring out how to put these up with the videos, but I don't want to give it away. It's a strange little thing. Here's the issue. Depending on where I house the document, it could be open to the general public, even if I wasn't intending it to be. So I got to just figure out how we hand things off. But anyway, nevertheless, I don't care about you guys having this one. So this is yeah.
Could ChatGPT tell you?
They can tell me, but again, their knowledge base ends at September 21.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like it's relatively recent, but in the world of platform development and all that, that's old. Isn't that terrible? It's something that's 2 years ago is old, but it is. So anyway, yeah, I still ask. I mean, chat. So I went to Chat GPT and I asked it a question. Are you familiar with the Wheel of Life? And it said, "Good morning. Yes, I am familiar with the Wheel of Life. And then it went on to tell me all sorts of things I didn't ask it, but it said the concept is basically the idea that there are multiple dimensions to our lives, and each should be in balance for overall well-being. Here's a general overview, and this is just how ChatGPT works. It just goes on and on. It says, things should be based on personal values and all that, and then here's a segment, and on and on and on. So it just spit that out. And so it only gave me 6 life areas, or yeah, whatever. So I said, no, rather than it being an explanation about how to use the wheel in your life, could you please flesh out the life list? So anything you see that's bold is what I typed in as my query, and everything else is what ChatGPT has said. And this document, and by the way, this was created just before this call began this morning, and it represents less than 1 hour of interaction with ChatGPT. It's 29 pages of stuff. How long would it take you guys to generate 29 pages of readable copy? you know so anyway, so I said, come on, flesh it out to a life area list, to a set of 12. So here's the suggestion that came up with: physical health, mental emotional well-being, career, business, finances, a lot of them that are already on the spoke we've already looked at. So at least it was confirming that we weren't too far off the path there. So these were the 12 it came up with. And so these categories are meant to offer a comprehensive view of one's life. Remember, the Wheel of Life is a flexible tool. It is always the most diplomatic person you could ever talk to. So it's always framing it. So am I right that right there we could just say, well, thank you, Chad, and we could leave and go on and do whatever it is we really feel like doing, right?
Yeah.
I said, oh, but that is not the way my mind thinks. So I said, does that list truly represent a complete and holistic life? Or are there other life areas that we should consider? And so here it gives us an expanded list, 12 additional ones that could be used. And, it's giving us a little copy. You can read all that for how it's setting the stage for what it's giving you. So here's some additional life areas: cultural identity, parenting, romantic relationships, creativity, political or activist sort of activities, work-life balance. I mean, you can see it. It can take your time if you want to really look at them. But the only thing that's going to matter is when we get to some of the last pages of all this. I just wanted to walk you through the process. And it's always going to give you a caveat. It's always going to give you a little bit. Well, does that list truly represent a complete? Oh, wait, no, I already did that. Somehow I pasted that twice. Never mind. So I said, excellent. What life areas would you add if you were a driven personality type focused on achievement, acquisition, accomplishment, etc.? So what I'm actually trying to do now is say, let's go to each of the 4 quadrants and create an activity list that would resonate with a person who was actually there. Now, why would I be doing that? I'm doing that because while it's great to have a general list that could go over, anybody and everybody, let's say that you wanted to use this for your own purposes and you knew the people that you wanted to target for your practice are people who are with driven personality types. They want to achieve something, acquire, accomplish. Their business owners, their executives, etc. They're the plotting out there in driver land. And so they say, well, for a driven personality type, here's what you might want to talk about: performance metrics, legacy and impact, growth and scaling. And, I'm not going to read them one by one: skill mastery, risk management, innovation, resilience, and grit. And so that's a pretty interesting thing. Now I said, well, what if you're considering what would you consider adding if you're a deeply analytical personality type focused on knowledge and expertise? Well, it says, well, then research and exploration, critical thinking, knowledge and sharing. And again, you guys have to understand that in less time than it took for me to type my query, it spits out the answer. So the moment you hit return, it's generating all this copy for you. So let me just check in with you guys if you want to unmute and throw this in. How many of you would have found this useful earlier in your own life, when you were trying to develop programs and put together, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And so I'm going somewhere. So Chris asked Bard, ChatGPT is trained on a massive data set of text and code, but it is not updated in real time. I also, Bard does have real-time internet, which
Mm-hmm.
allows me to stay up to date. Yeah. So I've been looking at the comparisons between Bard and ChatGPT version 4. And ChatGPT, even with its limitation, is still giving, I think, better quality output than Bard does. But if you've got something that's really time dependent, you're absolutely right. Bard and the other attempts that have been made to integrate ChatGPT's engine with their search engine, I think could be very useful there as well. So keep them both available to you. One of the things I like about ChatGPT is I can tell it whose writing style manual I want all output to be generated in. So if you're doing something that's more academic, in the old days, it was you would have to follow Turabian's rules for for grammar, writing, etc., bibliography development, all that sort of stuff. But you could actually specify whose style guide you want it to use. Okay, anywho, then I went on, I said, and if you are an amiable, an S type, now what would you think they would want to focus on? Empathy and understanding, conflict resolution, listening skills, team collaboration. You get the idea? You can really say, rather than give you this generic one, instead, let me give you one that resonates with the life that you're living instead of the life you should be living. You with me on this? Because obviously, when we're looking at these more focused activity lists, there are things that are going to be missing from their list in order to give greater depth of exploration to something that resonates with where they really are. You guys with me on this? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. We're very expressive. So there's social engagement, recognition, visibility, inspiration, blah, 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 blah. Then I said, finally, what if you were a very balanced and centered persona? Practicing. Okay, so I wanted to leave this without editing to let you know you do not have to be careful when you're writing a query to ChatGPT. It understands what you were going for. So don't bother with correcting spelling and all that sort of stuff. And by the way, some of you might actually have a facility or faculty built into your computer that allows you to simply speak to it. It's going to go speak to the prompt that ChatGPT is generating. And so then you have to really watch for how accurate it took your spoken word and turned it into printed word. Nevertheless, there are things you could be doing. So I talked about the art of caring detachment, the oracle, the self, some of the things we throw out. And so here's what it threw out. For if you're in the center of the change grid, you're someone who's there, really want to focus, then these are the goal areas you should be looking at: mindful engagement, inner peace and meditation, intuitive wisdom, boundaries and detachment, nature and universe connection. And again, we've not educated ChatGPT about what our concepts are for the center, but I think it's really remarkable that based on its full corpus of whatever training data, whatever they call it, it seems to meet us exactly where our minds already are for what's going on when you're in the center of the change grid. Yep. So
this is pretty in depth. It kind of reminds me of, or at least what comes to mind to me is, I call it a myth of sorts of balance,
yeah,
because the myth of balance, posits something against something else, and I think that's why this work-life balance isn't uh, advantageous for people to think from,
yep,
because it's more like work-life integration, and more importantly, life comes first. And
yep,
so it's kind of like we posit work first, and then people get, worn out from that and
yep,
that.
yep.
But I think life kind of supersedes that.
Well,
So,
I think you're absolutely right. We just have to kind of recognize that all these tools that we're looking at today, all these insights and models and that we were looking at, you have to realize that somebody wrote it up earlier. And
mm,
for whatever reason, they needed to keep it simple. Maybe they were trying to do something they could monetize. And a very in-depth PhD level book which I think is where ChangeWorks would actually probably fall at this point in time. There's too
Yeah.
much information that goes into too much detail. It can be applied in too many ways. And on the one hand, that's a thing of beauty, but on the other hand, it doesn't actually make it easy to market.
Mm.
So people have to find something that they can really kind of digest down to terms that we might consider to be rather simplistic. But
Mm-hmm.
nevertheless, I mean, I can tell you, the Kriegers made a fortune talking about nothing but the panic zone, the C zone, and the drone zone. Three levels of tension. That's all they looked at. And they, made make things quite good for themselves. And we're going like, well, thanks for the little confirmation. All right, so now look at what I did here. I said, now that you've fleshed out these 5 more specific lists, please revisit the first list you made and make adjustments to better reflect the lives of the average person that they can connect with. Our goal is to use the Wheel of Life as an outreach and intake tool to attract people to our community. And so went back and it said, these are the 12 areas that are common across all of those different personality types we looked at. So it is kind of factoring in that in a way that we can actually turn around and use. All right. So then I said, for each of the 12 areas you've just listed, we need to create a list of 6 mission critical activities that should be focused upon in order to achieve maximum satisfaction in that area. All activities must begin with a verb in the gerund form, and the activities should be presented in a clear, practical, and authoritative tone. Keep each activity short.
Now, here's where we get lazy.
There you go.
Oh, professionally lazy. I mean, it's an absolutely beautiful prompt for the change grid.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what we really need to be able to do. And by the way, the latest version of ChatGPT allows you to store queries so you can reuse them later. That's
Oh.
very handy. Otherwise, you have to do them in your own Word document and cut and paste. So here's what it says. Here are 6 mission critical activities for each of the 12 areas. Now, before we look at any of these, I'll say to you that it's not an expert in tension management. It doesn't know anything about all that. So you're looking at this conversation is isolated. So all it knows is all it knows. I'm saying that to say we might want to tighten up some of these activities or change their emphasis a little bit, but look what they did. So for physical well-being, you need to exercise regularly, eat a balanced diet, sleep for a recommended duration, hydrate, have regular, but I don't like the word scheduling. I don't want you to schedule regular medical checkups. What's really mission critical? Scheduling them?
Go attending.
Attending them,
Attending.
completing
Exactly.
them. Right. So sometimes we need to do that. Limiting harmful habits like smoking or excessive drinking is limiting what I want you to do. I want you to eliminate them. So, right.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's harmful, then I think the ultimate goal is to not do harmful things. Now,
Right.
as you work your way through each one of these 12 life areas, you'll find something very good emerging. So mental and emotional health, mindfulness, seeking therapy when you're feeling overwhelmed, engaging in positive self-talk, etc. So we got relationships, professional and career, financial stability. These are very good activities, totally usable without any modifications at all. That being said, we always know that we can modify things and have something that better aligns with what we know to be true. But are we all like suitably impressed?
Yeah, this
Oh
is
yeah.
good. You can even break these down even further. Like when you go back up to the physical one, like something like really talking about things that are minimal but can have maximum effect, right? Something like even chewing food to liquid.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
That's a simple thing because 60% of the digestion process is how your body digests food. So it's not just what you eat, but if you're not breaking it down to a level the body can actually digest it, then anything that the body doesn't digest turns toxic.
yeah. Now,
So that
do you know who came up with that theory initially in the world of nutrition?
I seen it it was actually in a study. They were like, it was a longitudinal study, in fact, but I don't know who created it.
Their name was Fletcher.
Ah,
This is
okay.
Fletchering, and the Fletcher, the people who practice Fletcherism, it was quite a movement back in the probably the late 1800s or whatever. It's where Kellogg's food came to be. There were all kinds of beliefs that if you ate certain things at certain times and you had, I don't know, enemas and electric baths and all this sort of stuff. But one of the big things that came out of it is that you should chew every mouthful of food. Anyone know how many times?
I think it's
28.
20 or 30 or something.
I remember it was either 28 or 29.
Ah, okay.
I remember
Yeah.
Bob Newhart in his show was always hung up on full mastication.
Full mastication. Exactly right. Exactly right. And
Uh,
yeah, you chew any mouthful of food 29 times, 28 times, it's going to be liquid. So,
yeah. Yeah.
so there you
Exactly.
go. Or you shouldn't be eating it, spit it out. So it
Plus,
obviously,
it makes for a long meal.
right. Exactly, exactly. All right, anyway. So then I said, well, this is all very good, very fine and dandy, but rather than having it be for a broad general public, a true general public. What if I said, when it comes to the kind of work we do, maybe just maybe some or all of us are focusing at different segments of the general population. So I thought one of the ways we could certainly divide the general population into ways that might be meaningful is to do this, and that is talking about the seasons of life. So now
Mm.
let's modify the list for 4 different populations, individuals in the spring, summer, autumn, and winter of their lives. How would you characterize the seasons of life? So the seasons of life metaphor, it's talking about what spring is and summer is, youth, adulthood. I really, now that I'm rethinking this, I might have said the 4 seasons of adulthood, because youth is from birth until your early 20s. And honestly, my thought was I wanted to just talk about people who are adults. So 16 and over, 18 and over, whatever it happens to be. And then as I think about this, I go, yeah, but we want to put this up on YouTube. What is the age range of the people who are watching stuff on YouTube?
Mm.
So, and then I went like, yeah, well, that's all fine and dandy, but I want people who are on YouTube who are of an age that allows them to join a community and maybe even pay for some, higher levels of participation, etc. Get the idea? But I thought, all right, well, I started the exercise. Let's continue it. So, what would the activity list look like for ideally for people who are in the spring, the summer? So, summer they consider from your late 20s through the 40s. And I agree with their description. So you're building relationships and families, career focus. The days are longest in the senses that there's a lot to juggle, outward focused energy. Then you get to autumn, middle age in the 50s and the 60s. Time of reflection. The winter, the elderly years, they're saying begins at 70 and beyond. Okay, fine. So I said, now, considering the mission critical activities for each of these 12 areas, we'd adjust them according to the following needs. And it's starting to give me some samples. And I said, well, that's great. Let's create the activity list because it was just giving me an example. I said, no, let's flesh it all out. I want to see the activity list for people who are in the spring of their lives. And this is what it went through. It gave me 6 different activities. Still, the 12 categories remain the same. Some activities are consistent, but for many of them, the things that are focused on are different. And so I'm showing this to you guys just to say, if you are working with a particular age range, well, then maybe you want to say, rather than use the full generic list, maybe I should use this list instead. Now,
Mm-hmm.
why did I want to create these out? Because I'd like to be able to say to people who are coming into the fold through our outreach, when they become a member of the community, I want to let them know that it's great that they're doing these six activity grids on a weekly basis, and it's great that they're learning about themselves, etc. But what they really want to do is go for greater depth. And so one of the things they could ask a ChangeWorks coach to do is to have the ability to fill out their more age specific general list. And you could then send them this or whatever. They could fill it out. You get to see whatever's going on with them. And then you can decide, do you want to move them into some sort of coaching specific to this? I mean, you're looking at a change grid. Now, I will tell you that if you give someone this full activity list, this is 72 activities. That's a giant ask for someone to do. So you might want to say, no, let's have this person who's in the spring of their life, have them fill out a wheel of life. And then based on what the wheel of life shows, you might want to focus in on certain spokes of it, in which case you would just focus on the activity list for those life areas that you think are really worth diving into. So just never forget that our greatest enemy in the world of using the change grid is respondent fatigue. And so we don't want them to have too big of an activity list all at once. It's just going to compromise their responses as they go deeper and deeper into the profile. But you give them, 12, maybe 18, so 3 of these areas, you could do that. Or you could just say, I'm going to send you a series of these, and you're going to fill one out each day. And we're going to look at it that way. So again, if you're trying to attract people to your practice, you need to get them involved. And so if you can send them something daily, every other day, perhaps, you're going to do that. So anyway, that was spring. I said, show me summer. So
So may
here's,
I ask a quick question?
please ask us
So
all.
so how would that like for people who are re-careering, if that's a word, or like uh starting over, if that's going by age, like where would they fit into something like that? Because I see a lot of that today. But like even for physicians who are retooling, they may not want to do like clinical stuff, but
Yeah,
age-wise, they don't fit into that 20, but they're starting over. So there's a
right.
lot to explore in terms of
I think
orientation.
I think what you would do there, Tim's just said pivot, absolutely right. I
Yeah,
think what you would
exactly.
do
Pivot.
there is say, well, these activity lists are purely for screening purposes. You are
Okay.
in a more unique situation. You should have a unique list put together. I could say to ChatGPT, there are a lot of people who are switching careers later in life that are doing this, and say, could you please take our list of the 12 life areas and flesh out activities that would be specific to people that are rebuilding their life, reinventing themselves, whatever it happens to be. I would do that here, but I'm giving this to you as a Word document, not inside of ChatGPT.
Right.
The reason why I did that is I did want you to actually have this. But the second thing is ChatGPT is misbehaving in recent days. And as your chat gets longer and longer and more involved, it's going to sooner or later throw an error. And when it throws the error, you may lose that entire conversation.
Oh.
And so if you're going to be doing something important, just get into the habit of cutting and pasting the chat into a Word document. And then you'll always have it. And if you don't care about formatting, when you're done with the chat, you can say copy everything and paste everything if you want to do it all at once. But then you've got a lot of formatting stuff you got to go in and clean up. So,
T, I like Brian's question, and actually, Brian, I was thinking of that as T was walking through this. You all may remember several sessions back, we looked at my 9 square
yes.
model for career transitioning, and whether or not it would overlay on the change grid. And so that pivoting piece you're talking about, Brian, is certainly one of those 9 squares, particularly square 9, which is I want to do a completely different job in a completely different industry. And the strategy for making that transition obviously is a lot more stressful than box 1, which is I'm looking for the same type of opportunity in the same industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
People get
See,
really stuck in that too.
they
It
do.
can create some significant stress for people.
Right, but
Yes.
let me just emphasize from the business perspective that your goal as a ChangeWorks practitioner is to create customized change grids. That means custom wheel of life if you're using this as your intake or whatever. Always do things uniquely for the client.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's better for them, and it's I think, well, I mean, you're in a business. It's what makes it lucrative. So I've gone to my Chat GPT account. I never throw away a chat. It's really interesting to look back and see what I've been yammering with them about for gosh knows how long. But this is the Wheel of Life overview. I click on it, it brings it back in, it stops where we left off on winter. And so I can say, now create a list for an individual. I forget, you can't type and talk. Well, I can't type period. For an individual who is, what do you want to say, transitioning careers?
Yes.
Reinventing themselves.
Or you can go with the term pivot if that's what they're actually doing.
Pivoting, period. And it says, absolutely, here's a tailored mission critical activities list for someone, blah, blah, blah. Physical well-being, adapting to the routines to match new demands. I don't know if you guys can see this as it's scrolling. I'll zoom in.
Yeah, they're definitely speaking tension.
Yep.
Physical, mental, emotional.
Yeah, and so I would say to you, building on what Shag shared earlier, let them know that you're going to create a totally unique set of 72 mission critical activities for them. And by the way, you could tell ChatGPT, I don't want just 6, give me 24 for each one of these areas. You know, just again, never forget that respondent fatigue is a very real thing. So, and you've all experienced it, I'm sure, countless times yourself. So, you know, it's great to have these robust lists. It's another thing to, you know, I always just say it's a big ask to have someone do this. Now, over time, you could break it into a whole series of activities, you know, there you go.
I love watching it work.
It is. It's like, oh, by the way, the reason why they give you the result this way is so that you think it's a live interaction. Oh, by the way, it ran out of space there, so you have to click on continue generating sometimes, and it will. Yeah. But the truth is that the full answer is available instantaneously. So one of the new features they want to add is that rather than watching it do this, it can just instantly give you the whole thing. So I kind of like to think someone's doing some work, you know. So, all right. Anyway, there's your answer, Brian. You would just craft a unique activity list if you wanted to. By the way, while it's great that ChatGPT can do this, I would say to you that the best possible list is one that's being co-created with the client. You always want the client to own the list. If you say to them, what do you think is important? What do you think is mission critical? What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. Or we could say, here's a starting point. Let's go look at each one of these and see what's it missing. What can we put more emphasis on, or can we eliminate? You know, you want to make sure that the client owns the activity list, because what you most certainly don't want is during the interpretation or after the interpretation, you don't want to hear them say, well, you know, this is all very interesting, but I don't think it really matches where I am and what I'm trying to do. No. So if you're going to be that deep with a client, now you're doing things like journey experiences with them, and journey requires a custom crafted activity list.
Yep. Yeah, I call that the Apple way, because Apple builds what they call co-created communities, and that's how they build their products. And I think that's quite smart.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what social media overall has as its one of its guiding principles. It's trying to co-create with other citizens of the world something that is viewed as being entertaining, useful, provocative, whatever words best apply what that particular platform is willing to let be posted on its site.
So who do you envision targeting with this?
Well, I honestly, while I went through all this, it's just because my head got into, you know, a dive down a rabbit hole. I think in the middle of this, I think it was around page 14 or so, it said, here's the 12 generic ones that you would use. And then I said, now modify it for spring, summer, winter. So next time around, I'm just going to extract that one. I'm not going to make you seasick and keep rolling till I find it. I got a long way to roll back in order to get to what we're really are looking at. But I think that's the one that I'd like us to kind of validate. And by validating, what I want to do is take that activity list and say, does this map on top of the change grid, is it missing any areas that we really want to ask questions about? Just so we have a really good one. Yeah. All right, and so that'll be, again, this coming Thursday is our anniversary. I will send out cancellation things so you all receive an email that Thursday won't be happening. But next week, Tuesday, let's see if we can take a deep dive into the activities we really want to use, because my goal is to have this whole thing mobilized by the end of the month. And so that's what it really is. Yeah, okay. Anyway, final thoughts, comments?
Happy anniversary, T.
Thank you.
Happy anniversary, T and Linda.
Yeah, happy anniversary, T, and happy birthday, Brian.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Brian.
Brian, what are you doing for your birthday?
Absolutely nothing.
Well, that's the right thing to do when you're 39.
Sounds great. By the way, I did put that link in the chat.
Yes, thank you so much.
And that's the output that I got that I was really impressed with.
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, ChatGPT is not perfect. Some might say it's a long way from perfect, but my gosh, what a useful tool it is for all of us who are trying to create something that is readable by our clients and our prospects, and that, or something that it would serve as a good outline or even script for something we're trying to record.
But I see it as similar to a library in a law office that has what they call forms books.
Oh, yep.
You get it off the shelf, you fill it out. Now it's computerized.
Yeah, well, I think one of the
you charge the client based on the words, not the time it took to create the words.
Yep. We got to, because it's what the value is of what you've done, not how much time the clock it took.
And what's even more fun, as I put in earlier, ChatGPT in French means something special.
Yeah, well, it does. In fact, that was something we talked about with the French club. If you guys say ChatGPT with a slight French accent,
ChatGPT.
Right, French people hear you saying "cat, I farted." Pate is to pass gas.
That's GPT.
Well, although technically it's used to describe children, it really would be closer to pooted than farted.
It's funny though. It's
very funny. ChatGPT, what? Cat, I farted. Yes, that's what it would be.
These Americans are obsessed with sharing things with their cat.
Exactly. Right. Strange Americans. All right, anyway, thanks so much, everybody.
What a way to end. All right, love it. See you next
Take
year.
care.
Bye-bye.
Ready? Bye.